Welcome back to episode 27 of Planning Phase Syndicate's Universe Extended, our discussion about Mando Season 3, Episode 8, the last episode in this saga for this season. Joining me on mic tonight is my good friend, Mr. JJ, who now is in love with the Lions instead of the Giants. Gridiron, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. Excited to go over this final episode here, The Mandalorian.
So we apologize. We originally were going to air this discussion last week, Wednesday, but I was in the hospital with personal issues and was not able to cast really until tonight. So if you want to know what's going on, check out our normal podcast, Planning Phase Syndicate, where we'll have a conversation about that at the beginning of episode 97. But I'm excited to talk Mando Season 3, Episode 8. What was the finale? Was it everything you expected? Did you nut in your pants? Or were you disappointed? JJ, what was your reaction there?
Somewhere in the middle there. It wasn't a disappointing finale at all, but it wasn't everything I wanted it to be. And my main gripe, and I said it from the beginning, was that I wanted a really good space battle, which, apparently I didn't have the budget to do. So that was my biggest disappointment.
It was a space battle.
Yeah, but it was like, okay, we're going to go up into the atmosphere, take out a capital ship, which is dope. Don't get me wrong. But I wanted to see gauntlets. I wanted to see Fang fighters to, go in and engage some of these TIE fighters, or TIE interceptors, rather, right? Because we do see that, at least Bo-Katan with the gauntlet was able to at least fend off a squadron of TIE interceptors, right, with the help of Mando, to in that chase scene earlier in the season. But we didn't get to see a return to that or something similar to that with the smaller craft. That would have been pretty awesome to see the Mandalorians fight off the Empire that way, right? But beyond that, it was a very satisfying finale for the season. Definitely setting up season 4, which will most likely be the final season until we get into the movie, which will end the entire storyline for all this year. So I'm excited to see what comes out for season 4.
Yeah. So I'm going to start the whole thing off by saying JJ made a prediction and said the rumors were, and this might not have been public, but this was in our private chat, that Mando was going to die. JJ went on this whole thing. It was this whole, you fucking tried to get my hopes up that they're going to kill Mando off. And so I didn't watch the episode, by the way, on that Wednesday, partially because I was in the hospital.
Yeah.
But I could have watched it at the hospital while I was there. But but also because I was super worried about this. I waited till like 2:00 Wednesday night, which was technically Thursday morning, to watch this because I was sitting here all paranoid about the shit you were saying. And Mando, spoiler alert, does not die.
Thank God. Yes, because that would have sucked.
But that's what you were predicting. You were going on this whole thing about how the internet's like, Mando's gonna die. Everybody wants Mando to die. And it's like, no, you cannot kill Mando off. You can kill Grogu off, and we're probably okay with that. But you kill Mando off, and oh man.
Yeah, definitely. So we jump right into the action here. We see they pick up right where they left off from the previous episode, where Mando was captured. Previously had died, and the Mandos are on the run from the Empire after getting surprised at the entrance to their hangar bay there by Moff Gideon and their Mando guards. So we see Bo-Katan send out her lieutenant to go warn the fleet that the Empire was coming and that they needed to get into the atmosphere so that way they can avoid the attack there and leave the Arquitans behind as bait there. Now, this was one of the other gripes that I had for this particular episode is that Bo-Katan's Lieutenant Wolf was able to essentially ascend into the atmosphere, into space, all the way up to the Arquitans in orbit with a single jump with his jetpack that he has on there. And it just felt a little inconsistent, right? Because when we looked at the previous episode, when they were going through like the training that all the Mandalorians were going through, when they were chasing that giant bird creature that captured Vizsla's son, we had a scene there where they all essentially ran out of fuel and they weren't able to keep up with the beast. And then, but somehow they're able to, go into the atmosphere all the way up into orbit with a single jump. So it felt a little inconsistent, but I get it. It's not that kind of show. But beyond that, we get that awesome scene where the entire fleet minus the Architans just dives into the planet, and they just barely missed the TIE interceptors exiting out of the cloud as they went in, and then the TIE interceptors going into engage the Architans there, and we get a nice little mini space battle there as it's happening there.
Yeah, which is crazy because I know you wanted more of a space battle, and I don't disagree with you a little bit because
Yeah,
after seeing Return of the Jedi this weekend, I was like, all right, fair enough. There's a little bit
yeah,
more space battles than we've seen lately. And in fairness, nowadays it has to be cheaper to do this than
yeah,
before because you're just putting people in a little box and filming them, and it's all
exactly.
CGI. So I do agree
And it
with
could be the
you.
same actor too.
Yeah. um So I do agree with you in that aspect. Um, but I don't think it detracts from this episode's finale. And I think that's because
Yeah,
Mando has never traditionally been a space battle show. And I
yeah,
think you and I what we want out of Star Wars is for them to give us a space battle show. I think that's what we really want, which would have been great if Boba Fett had been that. I don't maybe Boba Fett could have been that, but was a failure. Um anyway, um so I think what we need to tell Disney is we want a space battle show that's a little bit more, that and I've been rewatching Rebels and there's more space battles in Rebels and I just finished Resistance a while ago and there's a lot of space battles in Resistance. So um I don't know. I think Bad Batch had some of that in the first season, but then it kind of laxed in the second season. So I don't know. We'll see. I agree with you though. Like I don't agree that it could have been better if it had more space battles because I think it needed to move farther towards what the episodes were conveying. Um I do agree though that it's sad we don't have more of that, but I don't think that it would have benefited them to do that unless they wanted to make a hour and a half long season finale, which obviously they do not want Mando to be um
yeah.
at all. That's not the model they want for Mando. So anyway, so we get through all of that, right? And then we get into, what happens to Mando, right? And you got
Mhm.
Moff Gideon chiding him, right? Is this whole thing. And it's a little confusing because nobody's taking this guy seriously. Like nobody seems like why is there not 50 guards? You know, like
Yeah,
what is wrong with these people? Why do you
and
think Mando doesn't need all these guards?
and the funny thing is that the episode right before, right when they captured him, he literally took out like at least five of their guards, and then they drag him away with just two guys.
Yeah.
Like it
It's like
felt like
nobody
that
takes him
Batman scene.
seriously.
Yeah, it's like that Batman scene, in the first Batman Begins with Christian Bale, where he appears before Ra's al Ghul, and then he's like, "You think I can't take out two of your goons?" And then he's like, "Fine, have it your way." And then like two more come out, so that way they could just delay him, and he just takes them out. Like it was like one of those moments, basically. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. I love that movie too, by the way.
yeah,
Um,
I love Batman.
yeah. Maybe we should start a Batman podcast. That's what we should do.
So we get the scene right where they're obviously dragging Mando away, and Mando's just waiting for his moment to basically jump up and surprise him. We do have a nice little action sequence there where he does take on those two Beskar plated stormtroopers, and turns out Mando's fireproof. He gets torched, he manages to take down the guard and stuff, but he doesn't even have his cape like singed, at least from what I could tell for the rest of the episode. Even though he was like under a good sustained fire from the flamethrowers from the stormtroopers on there. He ends up meeting up with Grogu. Grogu was able to obtain a map of the base there for Moff Gideon, and they try to go after his essentially his his center, or his I guess his office there, and we get a nice little scene here where we end up in the space where we saw Moff Gideon have the conversation with the other Moffs in secret, behind those laser barricades, and we have this nice little like melee sequence here, between the stormtroopers versus Bando, and they have some of those like the Magna Guard poles, with like some the riot shields on there. That was actually some of the best action sequences that we've seen in all of Mando.
Yeah, and it was exciting to see a different take for Mando per se than we had before. Like, he's not using all his weird contraptions anymore. Which, how about this? If you're capturing Mando, why would you not immediately bring him into a containment cell and strip him naked? Like, I don't understand why nobody does this. Like we do this in America: strip him naked, put a jumpsuit on. I'm like in Star Wars, they're like, it's okay, you can keep your armor. We're gonna disarm you, but you can keep your armor. And it's like, what? He still resists blaster bolts. Like,
Exactly.
I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is insane to me.
Yeah, exactly. And then while that sequence is happening, we get this nice like shot of R5 trying to help out Mando by deactivating the shields, and then he gets an army of the little mouse droids coming in to try and attack him, and that's a nice little like bot battle there. I hope that we see like those little mouse droids like in one of the ground games, just to see that like a little swarm of bot, mouse droids coming to attack you. That'd be funny.
Yeah, I know. And I agree with you. It'd be hilarious. Like, we need an alt art card. We need mouse droids in X-Wing. That's what we need.
Yeah. So finally we get into Mando manages to get through that whole laser barricade there, and he finds Gideon's cloning program, and we finally see what exactly he's been working on this whole time here. And it is clones of himself, the clones that he was mentioning before that he was working on, and it looks like these are clones that he was working on to be force sensitive versions of himself, that will eventually come out and be with the full Beskar armor that he would have had. So he would have had a small army of himself, just being able to wield that Beskar and have the force as well. Do you think that any one of these clones would have survived?
To me, I think they would have, but that's just me. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know, man. Because maybe.
Because we do see as Mando's walking past them, there's one that opens his eyes, like it suddenly becomes awake and aware of what's going on. Like and then shortly after the explosions happen, that breaks all the containment cells for all of them. Kind of makes me think that maybe we'll see a return of that in a future season.
Yes, to me it feels like an Shamalat.
Shaolin, yeah,
Yeah, however you say that
a
guy's name.
twist, yeah,
Yeah, it seems like that's a twist that we know is kind of coming. Like, I really I love the actor. I think that guy's one of the best actors ever. Like, period. Just so you know, like, he is. Moff Gideon has always been a pivotal character to me in the Mando series. I feel like they're gonna have to bring him back a little bit, like, as a clone. I just hope that that's not the whole story arc, because that would be sad. That would be like regurgence, and I
yeah,
don't need them to regurgitate that shit to me. But
yeah,
I do feel there's a possibility we're gonna see a resurgence of that. But what I would really hope for is that the resurgence happens and the Empire goes, "Hold on, you were actually cloning yourself the whole time," and murders him. And it's like a one
yeah.
episode arc, and it's done and over with. And the Empire new First Order just abolishes it.
Yeah, exactly. So then after that scene, we get a cut there where the Bo-Katan's force manages to escape to the area where the planetary Mandalorians were, and they find like a little oasis there, which shows that Mandalore still has life teeming within its core, essentially, where they can set up and rebuild. And then finally, reinforcements from the Mandalorian fleet arrive, and they set up the counterattack to go back into the base to go and try to take out Gideon's forces there. We have an awesome like jump scene from one of the gauntlets, and we see the armorer come out there. Now I find it hilarious, right? Because you have like several dozen Mandalorians just jump out, from the drop seat base from the gauntlets, and they're all like equipped with their blasters. Bo-Katan takes out her friggin' dark saber to go lead the attack, and yet the armor is like out there with a wrench, like flying
Yeah, I
around,
know.
like knocking people. Like,
Like that's her thing. Like if we played Legion, I want the armor with the fucking hammer, and it's got to do like 15 damage, right, or whatever it is. You roll 15 dice and do damage. Like that's crazy to me. Which like I never thought that we would see the armor in action, but I mean I guess it makes sense, right? Like it makes sense. I was excited.
yeah,
I'll be honest. I was excited about it.
yeah. It was just funny to me, right? It's like, somebody lend her a blaster at least. Like, come on, like, give her some range 3 attacks, right? So after we get that awesome battle there, for that, we go back to Mando, and he enters a room there where he sees all the blueprints there for the plants there for Moff Gideon, and we finally get the awaited battle scene here with Moff Gideon. And I gotta say, it didn't go out the way I thought it was going to happen. We get the Praetorian guards come in, and coming to attack Grogu and Mando there, and then it goes into a moment where they slice down the IG body while Grogu's in there. For a hot second, I was like, "Oh man, they're gonna take him out here," or either that, or Grogu is gonna do some amazing force trick, or take out like a makeshift lightsaber that he made to like fight them. But man, that was like a very tense moment there once those Praetorian guards came out.
Yeah, and I think those Praetorian guards, like watching that Return of the Jedi this weekend, like and not seeing them in action, like is really sad comparatively. So it's like I'm kind of happy we get to see this. And like if you think about it, like because when the Mandalorian happens versus when Return of the Jedi happens, these guards have to be like there had to be all these guards trained and ready to go, right? They just had to be there, ready to go. And then in Palpstead, and it's like, what do we do? What do we do with all these fuckers? Like, what do we do with them? We've got 50 of these people just trained somewhere. Let's give them to some people. Let's give them. Oh, Moff Gideon, you can have 2 or 3 of them. It's okay. But yeah, I was super scared for Grogu. Like that was when I thought they were gonna kill Grogu the whole time. Like I'm
Yeah.
sitting there like, oh, they're gonna kill Grogu. They're gonna kill Grogu. This is like
Yep.
this is gonna be one of those internet things where like the world will just end because we killed Baby Yoda. Like, and whoever at Disney kills Baby Yoda will be fired indefinitely because there will be all these incel cocksuckers ranting and raving about how could Star Wars kill a Baby Yoda. But
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
we don't see Grogu in any of the other shows. Like they have to come up with what happens and like a logical like we have to have that. It has to come because we
Yeah.
know he doesn't show up in the late 3 movies, and unless they're going to rewrite and re-record all those movies, which they're not. Like here's a weird off take. Maybe Thrawn becomes good again and takes Grogu with him to the Chiss like ascendancy.
My theory, and it's a little different for you, is that we know that in Rebels, that Ezra, when he constructs his first lightsaber, it is a combination of a blaster and a lightsaber, right? My guess is that since he's being trained to basically use those kind of weapons, that Ezra will help Grogu build a lightsaber that is both like that, like his first lightsaber, so that way he can still use his Mandalorian tricks as well as the lightsaber itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So yeah, we'll definitely see as it comes through. So we get the advancement of the battle there, and we finally see the face off here between Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon, and they get into the fight there after Moff overpowers Bando there. We get the finally a chance for Bo to redeem herself, fighting Moff Gideon with the darksaber, and then the unthinkable happens. It turns out that the Mandalore never plated his lightsaber with Beskar because he crushes it with his hand while Bo-Katan is holding it and destroys the darksaber. I was like, no, why? Why did he do it? Like I get, like they they want to eventually stray away from that, I guess, for the long term. But I was sad to see the dark saber go, man.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, like I'm torn between a couple things. One thing I gotta say is I'm telling you, and I told you when I watched it, that guy has superhuman robot strength because that armor is roboticized or whatever the hell you want to call it.
It's a
It's
powered armor, basically.
yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's like for a Fallout thing. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um from the video game Fallout, if you don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
uh but I'm not sad, I guess, to see it go because it just kind of feels like it again, it feels like a clean way for them to just end that part of it so that Bo-Katan can assume leadership easier. Like it feels kind of BS on how they wrote it. I understand why they did it. I understand all of that stuff. Like none of that. I don't disagree with any of that. And I know we have to have clean breaks somehow. But that's kind of what it felt like was just easily an easy way to just kill off part of
Modernize.
the lore.
I
Um,
think it's a way to like modernize the clans for the Mandalorian, right? Like if you break the object of tension, right, for like all the infighting for whoever holds the saber can lay claim to rule Mandalore. I think when you take away that piece there, then it takes away the motives for the clans to fight with each other and just
sure,
unifying behind a leader.
but I feel it could have been done by her versus like they had Moff Gideon do it, right? Like it
Right.
feels cheap, is what it
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but then we see the whole action. They're fighting. Grogu's there. They're all fighting on this deck. Moff Gideon kind of looks like he's gonna win. In fairness, like he probably should have won because he had power armor. Um,
And then we get a holdo maneuver
yeah,
happen right into the base. So we get the X Wolves who drives down the damaged and in process of being destroyed Architans right down the ship, right down the center of the base, and causes this giant explosion there. We get a moment there where the flames are coming towards Grogu and Mando and Bo Katan, and we get a moment where Grogu once again uses the Force to protect them. And I got some serious season 4 Rebel vibes where with Kanan using the Force to stop the explosion while protecting everybody else. Like that was a real big callback, and I'm like, oh my god, please don't kill him here now! Like, come on, don't kill somebody here. But he was able to save him, and he got tuckered out again. Like it looks like the more he uses the Force like that, the more he expends it, he gets tired. He ends up falling asleep again.
yeah. And I know there's been some internet chatter about well, people don't like that piece of it. I actually
I do.
genuinely agree with you. Like I liked it. I felt
Yeah.
the same thing, very Kanan-ish vibe. I felt that yes, they could do a better job about timeline pieces that they had a hard time conveying actual like logical years and timeline. Like I think we're gonna get this in Andor 2 for season 2. I think it's gonna happen. Like we're gonna be a little bit weirded out because they're gonna move faster than we want them to, and it's gonna bother people. Like Andor season 1 was very structured, X amount of time, this is how it works. And that's to some extent how they've transitioned Star Wars. But if you go back and watch the original movies, that's not like I mean, we don't go from like Luke saving Chewie and Han and Leia and then all of a sudden, oh now like tomorrow we're gonna go kill a Death Star. Like it's not there. Like they make it appear there, but it's really not technically just a 1 or 2 day. It's not a 1 or 2 day turnaround. That's not how that worked. But it's a movie, so they just didn't, like we don't need to see them toil around for the next couple of months. Like we don't need that. I think in Mando, if you look at traditional westerns and traditional samurai movies, you see these type of things where the time lapse is not always communicated in the way that people feel is the most beneficial way for the audience. But I think to me, it feels like it was done on purpose, right? Like we're not getting this timeline transition. And I think Andor season 2 is going to be the same way, and people are going to hate it, hate that piece of it. But to me, Grogu has had that time. We know he went and trained with Luke. We know he rejected Luke. We know he came back to Mando. We know that now they've been on the space adventure. that there's no way is like 1 or 2 days worth of space adventure, which we made fun of. We have made fun of this like already.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm. For sure.
to me, this is a timeline variance that we just aren't having the conceptual ability for, right? And I feel that Grogu being able to do this shows the timeline that we just didn't want to see. We don't want to see Grogu grow up. We want him to be this baby thing forever because we know babies aren't going to get murdered except for in episode 3. It's just not going to happen.
Or beginning of Obi-Wan. Yes.
Or beginning of Obi-Wan.
Okay.
Or in the flashback in Mando season 3. Anyway, so I think we think these things, but in reality, Grogu has grown. It's a benefit to me, in my opinion, that he's grown that much, and it's nice to see that um him shielding and saving people comparatively, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's just part of the story too. Like they're just slowly building him up to because there's still a lot more story to tell. There's still season 4 that's coming in there. We don't know if he'll make an appearance in Rebels or in the Ahsoka. That's what I meant, not Rebels, and the Ahsoka series that's coming up, as well as everything that's going to transpire in the Dave Filoni movie that's coming out that will end all of it here. So there's still so much more story to tell for that there. And hey, you never know, he might appear in the New Republic series or sorry, the Ray movie that's coming out as well. We There's just so much we don't know. There's so much more space for Grogu to grow up and see what becomes of him later on in the future there. So after the scene, the Mandalorians are victorious. They finally hold their ceremony where they're going to baptize Ragnar as part of the Vizsla clan, where he gets to say the creed there, right there at the waters of Mandalore there. And then Din brings Grogu to also profess the creed, and he's stopped by the armor who tells him that he's still too young to say the creed. And we get this really cute scene where Grogu babbles. He's like, "No, I can speak. I can speak." I'm like, "Somebody get him the IG droid so he can say yes, yes, yes." The adoption for Mando adopting Grogu, and he's formally given the name Din Grogu, which apparently all of us got wrong because we always thought that Din Djarin or Djarin was his last name, but apparently Din is his first name or his last name rather. So now he's officially Din Grogu as part of that particular clan there, and it's really cool to see that that officially happened there. And then we get this one scene there where Grogu focuses his attention into the water, and then he reaches out, and we get this shot of the going into the depths of the waters of Mandalore, and we see the the creature. My goodness, it escapes the name escapes my head right now, but
Mythosaur.
essentially react the Mythosaur. Thanks. React to Grogu there. So hopefully we see the Mythosaur show up, right?
I think so, and I think that Grogu will have the ability to tame it or communicate with it. One of the two. That's my theory.
Yeah. Yeah, and also just calls out more back to Ezra, right? Because Ezra's ability in the Force was to communicate with beasts, and we see Grogu starting to develop that talent. The more and more he uses the Force.
Yeah, which I think will be exciting. So
Yeah, and then finally, to end the season, we get Din flying out with Grogu in the N1 over to the New Republic bar, where we see him interact with Trapper Wolf there, and just speaking with all the different you see all the different New Republic pilots there. You see Dave Filoni in the background and stuff, and essentially when he gets himself hired to work as a contractor essentially for the New Republic to help out in the Outer Rim, so that way they can maintain some order out there, and this will essentially serve as the basis for the new adventures for season 4.
yeah, which like could go bad or could go really good. Like I don't know. Like I think they have to determine what the story is, and I think they've been very secretive about it because of the movies. So, um, we know there's going to be a movie coming. There's going to be another big bad. I feel like they're trying to make this more like Marvel. is what it feels like, and we're gonna get phases per se, and that's
Well,
kind
we
of what
know
this
that
feels like.
Favreau. Yeah, we know that John Favreau, is still with the MCU, helping write and do some of their sequences over there. So he very much is bringing that experience with him working with Marvel onto
Yeah,
the Star Wars series, which it's actually nice because it's helped improve the quality. I think.
yeah. I think the consistency and the continuality of how these interact, like, which is what we want as fans. Like, in my opinion, that's what we want as, like, can you bring back 000, BC1, Afra? Can you bring all these things together? But I think that continuality, and when they come into challenges, to me, that's beneficial. To me, I get excited by that. Like, it's like, oh, give me a challenge about how Thrawn's going to come back, and compared to the books versus the TV show. Even though I'm going to tell you, if it doesn't come to the books, I'm going to be very pissed off, and it's going to be a hatred session that we have every week when Thrawn comes out. But I love Thrawn that much. Like, I love like Thrawn, hands down, is one of my absolute all-time favorite characters ever. Like, it's just there. Um so I don't know. Overall, I would give this season finale a 10 out of 10. Like, personally, I feel that it was, I know you were saddened by the non-space battle piece. I don't care. I still think this is a space western. And that they've chosen specifically to move away from a million space battles to tell a story that we didn't get
Yeah,
as much in episodes 4, 5, and 6. I feel that they've done a better job at telling stories than they did than George Lucas did originally. And I think some of it's the financial backing, right? And some of it's the fact that they go, oh, well, we know, like, George Lucas didn't know he was even going to do the second movie. He didn't know that. Like, it wasn't a thing. So he tried to create an insular product that he could sell and give to us that was as good as it could be for the time. And I will tell you, I went to Return of the Jedi today, and there was a lot of young fans there. And I talked to this young kid that couldn't have been more than like 8 years old, maybe, and his grandmother. And she was excited. She saw the original one. She saw when it came out the second time. She's happy to bring the kids. She wants Mando to be in the theaters. Like, she's like, can you just give me a whole weekend where I pay for a ticket to come see all the Mando on a big screen? All right, that's a great idea. That's actually a really good idea.
that would
And I
be a
probably
great
would pay
idea.
hundreds of dollars for that because I'm a sucker. Um, like, let me sit around and drink soda and eat popcorn for 8 hours for 3 days in a row. Um, anyway, I feel that I feel this episode was 10 out of 10. I feel we could go with a little bit more sustenance there, but at the same token, I like the I miss Hondo. That's what I'm gonna say. I want Hondo in my space operas. But I feel that they did a very good service this episode to how the original Star Wars trilogy was designed and set up.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, all right. Well, thank you very much for joining it. We don't know the next universe extended that we're gonna do. We might do Bad Batch. I don't know if JJ's finished it or not yet.
I'm like three
Um,
episodes out. That's it.
So, with all the cancer stuff, I don't know 100% where I'm going to be next weekend. So we will try to continue our Universe Extended series, for it, coming up here, with
Do
some
you
stuff.
do you plan on watching the new kid show?
No, I don't know. I do not. I'm not going to watch it. Sorry. You can watch it. We can talk about it. I'm not going to watch it though.
Yeah, I so
I
they
don't have
already
any
put
little
out some
kids.
shorts. They already put out some shorts, and I was like, my goodness, this is terrible. I mean, they put out some ships there, but the timeline is just yeah, yeah, no.
Yeah. So no, if you want to talk about it, I'll happily talk about it with you. But no, I'm not going to watch them unless like there's something revolutionary.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
None of my kids are that young anymore, unfortunately. So it's like I don't even have an excuse. And like I didn't read any of the young adult or any of the other stuff
yeah,
books, so it's gonna be really hard for me. We can talk about Visions though, because Vision season one was amazing. I actually started rewatching that with my son because my one son doesn't really
yeah.
like Star Wars, but he loved the Vision series. So I actually started rewatching that with him last night, and we'll probably continue next weekend to finish that season off and then start the new season. Um,
Yeah, for me, Ninth Jedi is definitely the best episode for me out of all of those episodes. The first episode was actually really good, but I think Ninth Jedi is probably my favorite out of that entire first season. So it was
Yeah, I agree with you
fantastic.
that the ninth Jedi was the best. I do like the first one a lot, though. We
Yeah,
got through the first 3 last night before I fell asleep on the couch. But I will say, like, maybe we'll do Visions and Bad Batch. I will be watching Visions. Like, I just like I'm gonna watch it when it comes out. So, um,
yeah,
the style of animation it reminds me of that Love and Robots that Netflix did, and
yeah,
I love that show a lot on Netflix. That's like one of my favorite Netflix shows ever. Is that show? So.
yeah, man, for real.
But all right, well, thank you all for joining us through this insanely long episode of Planning Phase Syndicate Universe Extended Mando Season 3, Episode 8. We will be back next week with another Planning Phase Syndicate episode and possibly another Universe Extended. Depends if JJ stops being lazy and actually watches Star Wars content this week now that he's officially moved from before. So.
All right, cool.
But either which way, thank you all. Have a good night, and we will see you on the morrow.
See ya.